dependent homeland in which nearly 800 people have died. ETA called its ceasefire indefinite, but stressed that its aim was still independence from Spain.
In Bilbao, the industrial heart of the Basque Country, today has looked like any other day. On the streets, there's been no public euphoria, but there has been relief. After 30 years of conflict, people here want to believe that the ceasefire will bring peace.
Mejor que esto, antes fuego ilimitado.
What could be better than this? An unlimited ceasefire. ETA want peace, and so do the people. Now it's up to the government to make their move.
This footage, supplied exclusively to the BBC, shows the moment when ETA made its announcement. Two members of the organisation's collective leadership, their identities concealed, promised an indefinite ceasefire. Key political figures say the move is a first. They believe ETA really wants talks.
To declare a ceasefire is not a very common thing. It's quite unusual. This is the third ceasefire in the whole history of ETA, and this time is with no limits.
ETA may have announced a halt to its campaign of violence and destruction, but the Spanish government is being cautious. Time will be the judge, it said today. No one here is pronouncing the start of a new era, but there is at least fresh hope. If the Northern Ireland example holds true, ending the violence will be a long and complex process. But many here believe the chance for peace is now better than ever before. Orla Guerin, BBC News in the Basque Country.
And the time is just after 6:15, and later in the programme, after the devastating floods, a new catastrophe is facing the people of Bangladesh.
Britain's hospital is growing as the floods slowly recede. 1,000 people have died so far, almost a quarter from diarrhoea. 25 million people are homeless. 2/3 of the country, including large parts of the capital Dhaka, remain submerged. In the worst areas, water levels have barely subsided. Elsewhere, they're leaving behind pollution, damage and stagnant water, and many regions are already experiencing severe health problems.
A life saved possibly by only minutes at the main hospital for diarrheal diseases in Dhaka today. He'd been brought in from his still flooded village, one of the hundreds who pass through here each day. 8-year-old Alami Hussain fell ill at 3 in the morning. His father had seen more and more children going down with sickness and was extremely worried. When I brought my son in, I was afraid for his chances of survival, he says. Now, with Allah's grace, they say he'll be all right. Like many other school buildings, this has become a shelter for refugees from the flooding. Across the country, many people don't yet know whether they will have homes and, just as important, work to return to. The appeal by Britain's Disasters Emergency Committee is tackling these issues, as well as the most immediate of all the concerns.
There is already an increase in the number of cases of diarrhea, of hepatitis, and we fear that unless there is massive public health measures taken in terms of educating people, in terms of ensuring health services, that it could take on an epidemic.
The flooding has left this capital of 9 million people still a city of choked drainage and large quantities of stagnant water, one of the major sources of the health risks. Many households have been able to begin the process of clearing up as the waters finally recede, but for thousands of businesses too, like these textile factories, this is also revealing the extent of the damage the floods have caused.
All the signs are bad. And then the kind of mobilization that we should be doing prior to facing the problem is not going as fast as we thought it should. So given that kind of background, anything can happen. It could be a real big disaster at our hand. But that's a worst-case scenario.
On every front, Bangladesh and its people now face the most daunting challenge of their history. The government believes it can do much on its own, but it admits that the tough and costly road to recovery will go far beyond its own means. Mike Aldridge, BBC News, Dhaka.
And there'll be an appeal by aid agencies on behalf of the millions of people affected by the Bangladesh floods.
Car. But this is rather different. On a disused airfield, the car, which is appropriately called Bluebird, is put through its paces. it already holds the British record for an electric car, and the man whose grandfather made land speed history hopes to break the world record at the weekend, and at the same time make a point about electric power.
With this car we can hopefully get to 200, which will improve the profile of the electric car, and in the meantime the motors that we have will go straight into the back of a production car. There is no reason today why we are not driving electric cars.
It was 71 years ago at Pendine Sands in Wales that Malcolm Campbell set a new world land speed record. And it will be back at Pendine Sands on Saturday that this team will be attempting the electric equivalent. Now, to get the world record, they need to beat a speed of 215 miles per hour, set last year by an American. But given that Bluebird's UK record was set with a speed of 116 miles per hour, the team know there's much work still to be done. Clinton Rogers, BBC News, Wiltshire.
And tonight's main news again. President Clinton is waiting to hear whether his videotaped evidence